Hello, everyone. My name is Damascus Gomez. For those of you that don't know, um, I'm coming today to talk to you about the things that are going on in this world. Um, Today, my pastor preached a really phenomenal message, and it really touched my heart, and made me think about my own self in this time and how I'm feeling, and what has happened to me over uh, a period of time. And so I wanted to talk to everybody about it and let them know how I've felt with everything that's been going on as far as, you know, black men consistently, black men and women consistently dying unarmed and in questionable situations that to us we feel is unjust, and you know it continuing to strike fear, strike worry, strike nervousness into us as African American men and women, and you know not always feeling that we have the support or the backing that we are looking for and that we want. So for me personally, I have never really had any issues with any police. I've never had really any issues with anybody being straight out racist or prejudice in my life. I know that at a very young age, at the age of a kindergartner, I did experience, very outright racism. Um, and of course, at the time, I'm too young to even, figure out what it is, but I know it didn't feel right. I know it didn't make me feel like a person. And so, growing up, you know, I always knew about it, was taught about it, knew that it existed. Um, Maybe in a way have felt it, but, didn't give much mind to it. And, as we get older, things start coming to the light, especially, you know, depending on what you're watching, who you're watching it from, you know, and then we have, you know, just an outpouring of, you know, black man killed by white cop, and you know, Trayvon Martin. I really think that that was the turning point, because the thing that people have to realize is, this has been something that African Americans have been complaining about for generations. This is not anything new. This isn't a new problem. This is something that African Americans have been complaining about for generation after generation after generation. And one of the big issues has been that it's never been able to be proven. People have heard it and just brushed it off and have said, well, that truly can't be happening. But we had our first spill out in the Rodney King brutality case, and people were angry then, and people were mad then, and people responded then in a violent way, and people said, hey, we got to stop this. And so then we fast forward to Trayvon Martin, and just after him, it just seemed like it was so frequent. It was so frequent. It was so frequent that a black young man was being shot and killed, by a police officer, shot and killed by, you know, a cop, and it didn't feel right, considering, you know, we felt that it was racially motivated. We felt that it was police brutality, but there was never a conviction. There was never a charge. Um, but for me personally, I was hurt by the Trayvon Martin case and the Tamir Rice case. Um, but for me, it was really when Castillo, the video of Castillo and the other gentleman was shot. And it was just, I'm coming home from work, don't know what's going on. My wife shows me the video, and I broke. I, I truly felt that hope was lost for me personally, because I watched that video, my heart broke. I sunk. But I don't think that was the full brunt of that was what did me in. I think it was that when I went out into the community that I lived in, it seemed as though no one else was fazed by it. Nobody else really cared about it. Um, and in a time where it was so frequent, it seemed like every other day or, once a week we were getting another newscast of a unarmed black man being shot by a police officer. Um, and it just seemed like no one in that community cared. Nobody in that community was affected by it. Um, and to be very blunt and be very truthful, I was in a predominantly white community. And I had a lot of friends, a lot of people that I would consider friend or associate. Um, and it just didn't seem like any of them were fazed by it. Um, we had Black Lives Matter, and even from some of them, the rebuttal, which really angers me, and I think it angers a lot of black people, is when Black Lives Matter came forward and people were saying Black Lives Matter, it seemed as though instead of white people saying, you know what, we hear you, we see you, we understand what you're going through, it was all lives matter. Everybody was saying that, everybody that wasn't African American. And there was a small amount of people, African Americans, that were saying all lives matter. But the majority of African Americans were saying Black Lives Matter. And I think it happens way too frequently that when African Americans cry out and are trying to be heard, that instead of them being heard, they're met with rebuttal. They're met with an excuse or hey, we understand what you're trying to tell us, but this, So for me, when the Castillo shooting happened, I think, more hurt that no one in the community, no one that was a friend of mine, no one that, uh, or not no one, but not more people came forward and said, hey, how are you guys doing? How is your family doing? How are you feeling in this situation? Um, I did have an elderly man who was a customer of mine on a daily basis. He came through the drive through, and mind you, he was probably old enough to be my grandfather. Um, and he came to the drive through and he had a heart to heart with me. And, he told me, that he fears for me. Um, and he was the only person in that community, the only person that was close to me, that was white, um, to tell me, you care. I care about you. You matter to me. And I just felt like more people could have done that. More people could have said, you know, I don't fully understand the black experience, but I understand that you are a black brother of mine. You are a friend of mine, and I know that this has to be a hard time for you, an uncertain time for you. You are a black man raising a black son, providing for your black family. And I just want to let you know that if you want to talk, if you want to, you know, let me know how you feel, I'm here for you. And I don't feel that enough people did that. And so my heart broke. Um, I would equate it to a part of me having hope in America died. And I have been dealing with that since. Um, so, in the light of all of what has happened, now we're at George Floyd, um, a man that he cried out that he couldn't breathe. He cried out for his mother. He cried out that they were going to kill him. And as civilians yelled at police officers to check his pulse, to make sure that he was okay, they continued to do nothing. So, my heart breaks again. And, you know, the protests start and things start to get violent and things start to get looted, and my heart didn't feel sorry. Didn't feel sorry that people were out there looting, that people were out there rioting. It didn't feel sorry, and that is something I have to work on with myself. And I equate it to my loss in hope, my loss in faith in the American government, in white America. And I would just say that I have to work on that. I have to heal from that. And I have to fix that within me. All I can say is we need people to come alongside us. We need people to say, you know what, I understand, or I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand how you're feeling, but talk to me. And listen to them. Listen to them. Listen to their frustration. Listen to their anger, and let them be angry. Because I feel that African Americans have a right to be angry. This is not something that has been only happening this generation. We had the Watts riots in LA. We had the Rodney King riots. We've had so many other riots. And now we're at the Floyd riots. And the rioting has never been seen on this mass scale since the assassination of Martin Luther King. There is anger in people. There is frustration in people. And some of these rioters, some of these looters are not angry. They're just out to benefit themselves. And it isn't about George Floyd or justice. And when we as black people or anybody see it, we need to call it out. We need to say it's not right. So I'm pledging to do a better job. To do a better job and call it out what it is and not defend it. Not to defend it. Not to say that it's okay. Because it's not. I'm not going to post anything that's defending looting. I'm not going to post anything that is defending rioting. You have to call wrong out when it's wrong. For me, I want people to come alongside African Americans. Because The small amount of people that are doing wrong, that are looting, that are rioting, there are a majority of African Americans out there that are peacefully protesting. And the media is not showing that. The media is not shining enough light on that. And that's where me as an African American get angry. Because time after time after time, the media is at one point for us and pushing, for everybody to know what happened and how it's wrong. But then on the other side, they go to the other side and they're like, well, this person had this kind of past and this kind of history. And same thing with the riots. Every time, or protests, every time. It starts out as, hey, they're protesting because of this. But now, oh, look at this small amount, but we're going to make it seem like it's a big amount of the people that are rioting, that are looting. And it's not the fact, it's not the case. So let's stop giving them the airtime. Let's stop shining a light on them. I understand, yes, we have to know what's going on. And I'm not saying let's not keep us in the know. But let's stop giving them so much airtime. Let's stop pushing the narrative of, hey, look at the black people. They're doing it again. They're looting, they're rioting, and it's not about what it was initially about. It is. The protest is still about the brutality that black people are facing. It is. The racism that we're facing. That is why we're so angry. Let's keep the magnifying glass on what the issue is about. It's all of our jobs. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, anything, whatever you are. It is our jobs. If you are truly dismayed by what happened to George Floyd, it is our job to shine the light on that and to keep on pointing it out and to keep on calling it what it was. I don't truly feel that the death of George Floyd was racially motivated. I want to say that it was more police brutality. Now, police brutality does have root in racism, because you do have to ask yourself that question. If George Floyd was white, would that have happened to him? You have to. Because that's the question that is running through the minds of your fellow black friends. Had George Floyd been white, would this have happened to him? And we have to just do a better job. We have to call out these people that are doing this, that are basically taking the attention off of George Floyd and justice for him and his family. Taking the light off of African Americans who are facing police brutality, who are facing racism on a day-to-day basis. We need to put the light back on that and drive it home. CNN, all these other channels, Fox News, all these other channels that are continuing to shine the light on the looters and the rioters. Either we need to stop watching them till they get the point that you're not doing anybody justice. You're not helping anybody out by focusing on the non-violent protesters. If you're going to continue to focus on the violent protesters and the looters and the rioters, then we don't need to watch you. Until you can focus on the non-violent, on the majority instead of the minority, then we don't need to watch you. We don't need your help. Now, I want to move to my next case in point. Is the African American community does not have a leader. It doesn't. In the 60s, we had Martin Luther King, we had Malcolm X, we had a whole barrage of civil rights leaders, civil rights champions. We don't have that today. We don't have that today. I was telling my wife yesterday, the number one reason why African Americans have not had any justice or had any peace or continuing to have to face police brutality is because the African American community does not have a distinguished leader. We've had people who continue to show up and protest, and then they get on a plane and they leave. You know, that there might be a little bit of change, but there's nothing done at the federal level. There's nothing done at the state level. Our politicians aren't helping us. And you can make it about, oh, well, you know, it's because you have a Democrat as your legislature. Bull crap. It's time that people stop making this about politics and make it about what's right. Martin Luther King worked with Republicans and Democrats. He got stuff done. And I don't think it was just based off of his protests, because so many people are saying, oh, you know what? Martin Luther King marched, and that's what changed things. It wasn't the only thing that changed things. Yes, his nonviolent approach did help to have the change that we have today. But it was also the vision that people were getting night after night on their TVs and around the world of police attacking dogs on black people, police turning on water hoses on black people. Those imageries was also a driving force for the change that we have today. So don't make it seem like it was all just because Martin Luther King was peaceful. And let's be reminded that even though Martin Luther King was practicing nonviolence, he wasn't liked. He wasn't held as a hero by the nation. The very presidents that helped push the civil rights didn't even like him. JFK reluctantly helped Martin Luther King. All the presidents that Martin Luther King dealt with didn't truly like him, didn't truly want to help him, truly didn't want the civil rights to move forward. But the pressure that Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders put on them, the pressure that the American people were seeing night after night, put pressure on them to make the change. So we as African Americans have to figure out how to do that today. We don't have a leader. You know, we have the Black Lives Matter. We have the I Can't Breathe movement. But at the end of the day, those organizations don't have any political ties. They don't have any sway on any of these politicians. We don't have any voices in the White House. We don't have any voices in our states. So we as black people have to figure out, how do we do that? We as black people, and not only just black people, because this isn't just a black fight. So let me talk to everybody. We all have to figure that out. If you have ties to someone in a position of power, then you should be speaking to them. And you should be asking them these questions. What are you doing as a representative of our state or our city or our country? What are you doing to change what we're facing today? Because it can be easy, you know, for all this to blow over and go away and nothing change. This is the second black man that we have proof of saying that he can't breathe by police. In the Eric Garner case, nothing changed. They said, okay, you can't use this chokehold anymore. But that was the extent of the change. Nothing changed on any other level. Nothing was changed. Nothing spoke to police brutality, because ultimately, when you put someone in a chokehold, that's brutality. Especially if they're saying, I can't breathe. So, what are we going to do as a nation on the lowest levels to the highest levels to change this? You don't want rioting in your city? You don't want rioting in your state? You don't want rioting in your nation? Then we as a people, not black people, this responsibility can't just fall on the shoulders of black people, because black people have been left to do it by themselves for way too long. This nation is burning because of it. So we as a people, if you have a connection to a judge, if you have a connection to a politician, then you need to say, okay, what are our plans? Because we can't just look to them. We have to have some solutions to this problem. What are our plans? What town halls are we putting together? And people need to get off their pedestals. We need to talk about race. It's gonna be a hard conversation. Some of it we're not gonna want to hear. Black people, you're not gonna want to hear that white people shouldn't feel guilty. You're gonna hear it. White people, you're gonna hear from people that weren't slaves how slavery is still impacting them today. You're gonna hear about white privilege. The thing is, are you hearing them? Are you listening to them? Are you actually allowing it to take root? We have to have race conversations in the workplace, at church, out and about with friends. It's not enough to say, well, I have black friends. It's not enough to say I have Mexican friends. It's not enough to say I have Asian friends. It's not enough to say that I have white friends. It's not enough. Because you can have all the different color shades of friends, but if you don't ever have an understanding, nothing will change. Until you really want to understand the experience of a person, you can never understand their outrage. You can never understand their hurt. You can never understand what makes them tick. But we gotta do this on every level. From the presidency all the way down to mayors, to local groups. If you don't have a friend, and a friend that is a friend, not just an associate, not just someone that you say hi and bye to, but if you don't have a friend that is white, if you don't have a friend that is black, if you don't have a friend or friends, because you need more than one, because not all black people, not all white people, not all Asians, not all Hispanics, not all Indians are all the same. They're gonna all have different viewpoints. I'm pretty sure there's black people out there that's saying, you're wrong, dude, you're wrong. We need to take responsibility for what we do. We need to take responsibility. I'm sure they're out there. But we need to have a group of friends from all different races, from all different creeds, from all different states of walks of life. We need to. So that we can start tearing this down. There is a disease in America, and people can say, oh, it ended with the Civil War. No, it didn't. It never ended with the Civil War. It just continued. It just got a new face. So come on, we gotta change it. We gotta figure this out. Because I'm afraid that if we don't, the America that we know will be burned to the ground. We will go down a path that we will not be able to turn back from. You guys have a good day.